Hey everybody, my name is Will, this is Brittany, and today we are in the town of Sedona, Arizona. Now, this town is mostly known for its resorts, its high-end art galleries, its fine dining. Today we're not doing any of that. Today we are on the North Wilson Mountain Trail. We're on our way to the top of the tallest mountain in the town of Sedona. It's about 7,000 feet. It's gonna be rough to get up there, but there's a little wilderness left to be found in this town. We're gonna go find it. Let's get going.
Will, you said you thought you just heard a mountain lion.
There's a screeching that sounds vaguely reminiscent to a mountain lion, but I listened 2 or 3 times and it's definitely not bellowing like a mountain lion screech.
What would we do if we turned the corner and there was a big old mountain lion?
We would walk backwards very slowly, trying to get out of its range as quickly as possible, talking to it, maintaining eye contact with it. The one thing you don't do with most predator animals is turn around and run, because that can trigger a chase instinct. With black bears, you want to look big, you want to look intimidating. Black bears are kind of dumb. You can trick them out of wanting to fight you. Mountain lion knows it can kill you.
I've also heard because felines prefer the element of surprise, what you're talking about is very effective because they don't have the chance to sneak up on you.
Exactly. And now is actually the time where you would be most likely to encounter a mountain lion, is like the early mid-spring, because you're starting to have cubs coming out of hibernation and stuff. And the biggest concern with any predatory species is the concern that you might be a threat to their cubs. The goal is to demonstrate that that is not the case. So you just try to look big, maintain eye contact, back up slowly, do not turn around and run. There's a really good video that we can link in the description of a guy who encountered a mountain lion. It's a really good example of like what to do if you encounter a mountain lion. Do exactly what this guy does. On our way to the top of the tallest mountain in the town of Sedona. Sedona, outside of the Grand Canyon, is probably the most famous tourist destination in the state of Arizona. People come from all over the world to see Sedona. And these days, Sedona is mostly known for resorts, fine dining, art galleries, film festivals, things of that nature. It wasn't always that way. The modern town of Sedona was founded in 1876, and it used to just be a little post office stop-off town, no more or less remarkable than any other frontier town in the Southwest in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. What really put Sedona on the map was the fact that Hollywood discovered it in the 1920s, 1930s. And in the 30s, 40s, 50s, there were a ton of Western films that were made here. 3:10 to Yuma, Angel and the Bad Man with John Wayne, and these were extraordinarily popular in the mid-20th century. Hollywood love for Sedona continued through the 1980s. I think most people watching this will recognize Sedona most from the Karate Kid. That's what put Sedona on the map, and that's why it is the way it is today. Sedona has a reputation in the outdoors community for just being incredibly overcrowded and just very difficult to get to. The Pink Jeep tours are infamous for just being very loud, very disruptive. There's helicopter tours. The hiking trails in town are so crowded that the town has to operate a shuttle service because there's just no way to accommodate the trailhead parking demand. I really don't think Sedona's bad reputation for being an overcrowded hellhole is well earned, because you can come to places like Wilson Mountain and still find wilderness in Sedona. You can still see Sedona the way it's always existed. You've just got to look for it a little more.
Wow.
I forgot how much I like Sedona. All trails. We're not sponsored by them, but you should download it. We're on the topo map here. We've been heading up some really steep switchbacks here, these back and forths. We're about to hit the first bench, which will be this big plateau of grassland, about 7.8 miles out and back. The way to read a topo map, the really thin lines, each one of those represents an amount of footage. We started down here, and you can see the lines indicating elevation get way bigger once we hit the bench. Then there will be pretty tricky switchback up to the actual summit. A good thing to remember about out and backs is however deep in you have to go is how deep you have to come out. So, you know.
Good point.
Yeah. But so it's like I'm used to zipping this way, not this way. So it's a little bit of an adjustment. Okay, so we are now at the first bench of Wilson Mountain. As you can see, the ecosystem here is very different than we've been hiking through so far. That is the second bench of Wilson Mountain. That's the summit. That is the highest point in the town of Sedona, and that is where we're headed. You said you had a question.
Yeah, earlier you said that we're in a chaparral. What is that?
So a chaparral is kind of the intermediary ecological zone between desert and high country forests. Phoenix is a desert. It's at lower elevations, 1,000 to 2,000 feet. Flagstaff is 6,000, 7,000 feet high. The chaparral is the region that exists in between those two zones. First bench of Wilson Mountain is a prime example of a chaparral. It's grassland, it's mostly scrub country. Did I answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is a story I think I told you, Brittany. So in 2019, I lived in Colorado, and I'd lived there for about 3 years working for the U.S. Antarctic Program. I lived a very sedentary life there. And at the end of 2019, I accepted a job in Chicago. I remember leaving the Denver area, the mountains disappearing in my rearview mirror, realizing, holy crap, I think I just spent 3 years living in one of the most beautiful places in this country and not seeing any of it. And I remember thinking in that moment, if life ever brings me back to a place with mountains, I'm gonna live in them. After about a year in Chicago, my family decided to move back to Arizona. I decided to follow them. And ever since I've been back here, the world got weird. COVID happened, a lot of indoor recreation shut down, but the outdoors stayed open. I started hiking, I started getting active. Just last year, I did a fitness challenge called the Arizona Six Pack of Peaks, 6 of the tallest mountains in northern Arizona. Wilson Mountain was the first one I did. And when I got to the summit of Wilson Mountain, I remembered watching the mountains in Denver disappear in my rearview mirror and remembering if I ever move back to the mountains, I'm gonna live in them. Wilson Mountain was the place where that actually started to feel real. End of story.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
So this is the fork you come up to. If you want to look at the town and technically be at the highest point in town, take a left, head towards the Sedona overlook. The North Canyon overlook takes you to a beautiful overlook of Oak Creek Canyon. We're going to go into that snow-covered pine forest and see what's on the other side. Welcome to summit of Wilson Mountain. Yay! We have made it. We did it. This is one of the coolest views in the entire town. We are at 7,011 feet, and this is the tallest point in the town of Sedona. You can see a lot of really popular hiking places here as well. Submarine Rock, thusly named for very obvious reasons. Looks like a submarine. Brittany pointed out when we first arrived, the airport, which is a good opportunity to talk about the fact that in addition to Sedona being a very popular filming location during the golden age of Hollywood, it also has a lot of spirituality attributed to it. This church that was built right into the side of a mountain, Chapel of the Holy Cross. There's a Buddhist stupa here, and there's only a handful of Buddhist stupas in the North American continent, so the fact that Sedona hosts one is important to that community. There's also a lot of New Age spirituality here too. Some would call it mysticism. There are several sites that believers in New Age spirituality attribute to hosting spiritual vortexes, places of just very dynamic energy and spiritual power. The airport Mesa is one of the sites of those spiritual vortices. Apparently, the popularity of the spiritual vortices was kind of propagated in the 1970s, so subject to debate how deep-rooted those traditions are. If you are somebody who feels strongly about the Sedona spiritual vortices and can tell us a little more about it, please let us know in the comments. So we are done here at Wilson Mountain. The trail that we did will be about 8 miles and change, 2,500 feet of vertical elevation. By far the toughest hike we've done on this channel. If you're a beginner, please don't start with Wilson Mountain. If you're an experienced hiker, and especially if you're somebody who has heard a lot of bad things about Sedona being overcrowded, kind of a tourist hellhole, come to Wilson Mountain. It will change your opinion of this place, and it may well become one of your favorite places in Arizona.
Take breaks when you need them.
Take lots of breaks. Bring more water than you think you need. Remember to bring a coat. Well done.
All right. Thanks, Will.
Nice job. Thank you.
We did it.